Welcome back to the morning show right here on ETV. It's 18 minutes after 7 o'clock, and right now I'm moving into a discussion relating to all things music. The South African Music Rights Organization, SAMRO, has received a key, or rather achieved a key milestone by successfully distributing 22 million rand in accumulated unclaimed royalties to members who had outdated or incorrect banking information. Now, joining us this morning to tell us more about SAMRO's big achievement and so much more that they do is General Manager of Sales and Licensing, Karabo Senna. Karabo, thank you so much for joining us this morning on the morning show.
Thank you for the invite.
22 million is a topic that we're going to talk about in a moment because I think this is massive for a lot of artists that have been waiting for royalties. Let's start off first with the work that SAMRO does. Who is SAMRO? What does SAMRO actually do?
Yeah, so SAMRO is a Southern African Music Rights Organization. So essentially what we do, we represent artists that are musicians. And these are creators of musical works. So we often hear music, we never think who actually creates it, but these are the people that create the beats and as well as the lyrics. So we have just about 170,000 of these in South Africa and also in Africa as well. So what is also important is that SAMRO is also one of the biggest societies in the world in terms of membership, but also in Africa in terms of royalties, because we are at this point generating the region of about $500 million of royalties that we then pay over to these musicians.
Sure, that is quite a number of musicians to consider and quite a bit of money that is moving around. So you speak about the rights that the musician then receive money from. What are the types of rights that are there? Just maybe if there's an artist who's listening wondering about this.
So essentially a lot of people talk about copyright, but it's I would say it's split in two segments, the biggest ones legally. It is copyright in the composition and copyright in the recording. So when you hear people talk about a master, they're actually saying copyright in the recording, but where SAMRO is in copyright in the composition. So between that, there's also, it splits again into just two smaller rights, which we call performing right, which is what SAMRO administers. And then you have what we call then mechanical right, which is what Capasso administers. So essentially, from a music perspective, you would want as a creator to be registered with all the different societies, and this would be SAMRO, Capasso, and then on the copyright in the recording side, you need SAMPRA as well, which is needle time, and then RISA as well, if you have music videos. So for us, our focus is the creators, the people that create the beats and also the lyrics. But on the master side, it's the performers, because sometimes I could write a song and then you go and perform it, not necessarily, I'm the performer. So in that sort of sequence, one would earn from SAMRO and Capasso and the other would earn from SAMPRA. Okay. So that's the logic,
So in a case, just to make sure that I understand it correctly, this is where you would be working with the people that's working behind the scenes, more often not known. And in a case where we would see articles of someone saying, hey, I officially made this beat, but hey, where's my money? It would be relating to the work that SAMRO would do.
More so to SAMRO, But what is important is that a lot of South African artists actually are part of creation of their own works. So we see that around about 80% of the works that you see from South African artists, they were part of it. So yes, we are mostly focused obviously on the back-end guys, the guys that probably you might not even know, because the biggest earners in SAMRO, for example, are people that most, general people would not be able to recognize. But those are the guys that are earning the most money because they are obviously in the back end.
Let's get into specifically the issue, well, not so much the issue, the conversation around the 22 million. And before we speak about the work that's been done here, I want to touch on something where a lot of artists feel there is a disparity between the work that they do, the work that is out there, and them receiving their money. I remember a tweet from 2021 where Prince KB saying, you guys still get money from SAMRO? I mean, I just got 100 rand now. What would usually be the cause when artists are saying, in this case, he's saying he is registered, they've got his banking details, but he's only received 100 rand. What would be the issue in that particular instance? Or what would you find is the most common reason why artists find themselves in that?
So it's important firstly for artists to understand that SAMRO pays what we call different distributions. So distributions is like, one sort of month would pay for radio, another month will pay for TV, another month will pay for what we call MIT, but these are like Spotify and iTunes and the likes, and cinema and live and foreign. So when you get all these different payments, we have about 15 or 16 distributions over a year, right? So then artists sometimes are not really sure at the moment. Before you look at your statement, you're not really sure as to what am I actually being paid for. So yes, you may find that you're being paid, let's say, 500 rands, but that is obviously because this is money from Germany, right? Your music being played in Germany, because we don't only collect in South Africa. We also have relationships that allow us to get money from all around the world. So if your music is played in Japan and then we are paying you 500 rands, that is the equivalent of what your music generated in that country. So, but when we look at the bigger sort of distributions, like radio in general, that's what we call it, right? Radio, last time, let's say that was in January, we distributed just over 140 million rands. So these artists, the bigger artists especially, would be getting the biggest chunk of that. So I think therein is just a problem of understanding to say, okay, fine, what am I actually being paid for here? And, even with that particular scenario, that was actually the issue. That was what we call a foreign distribution. And in that scenario, it was a different country. And so, yes, for that country, of course, you are not as big as you are here. So in that instance, it is reasonable for you to expect that.
Yeah, it's matching to how the music has been spread in the area. Yes. It sounds like there's an administrative issue that artists are maybe not understanding running of the admin, because that's what brings us to the 22 million.
Yep.
SAMRO's just paid out to the sum of 22 million to artists that have been waiting for funds to come in because banking details are off. Tell us a little bit more about this great milestone.
Yes. So essentially, whenever it's just like any system where you get paid, you need to make sure that that system is aware of any changes that take place in your life, especially in terms of contact details and as well as banking, details. Because the only way we are able to pay you as a creative, registered with SAMRO is that you need to have your banking details updated. So what we have identified is that we had just in the region of about 6,000 artists that did not have their banking accounts updated. So part of the process was trying to trace them, sharing information so that, other members can help us as well trace them. And in this process, we've been able to identify, just over 1,000 of them, and we paid 22 million rands. But it doesn't stop there, because there's still an additional few thousands that we still have to identify. And I think this is a success, but still a call to action to say, as a SAMRO member, please go onto our homepage. There's a big tab, literally just saying, unclaimed royalties. With that, all you have to do is to click on that and put in your ID and see if you have any money due to you.
What does SAMRO hope to achieve with a distribution like this to the value of 22 million and building a platform where artists are then able to go find out, hey, maybe my details haven't been updated?
Essentially, it's to achieve our mandate. Our mandate is simplistically to make sure that we are able to collect as much royalties as possible for artists and pay it over to them. So any failure in doing that, we are not achieving our mandate. So it's as simple as that. To say, guys, you know why you signed up with SAMRO. Of course, you didn't sign up just for the sake of it. You signed up to get paid. So let us make sure that we do that. But you need to just make sure that on your side, you update your bank account details. And it happens for several instances with artists. They have different bank accounts for business, for this and that. And when that changes, notify us, because your life changes. We want to be part of it as well. And, it's a seamless, collaboration.
Karabo, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm looking forward to seeing more and more artists eventually step out and say, hey, I need to update my details so that I can be able to receive the royalties.
Certainly.
100%. That was Karabo Senna joining us right here on The Morning Show, talking all things Southern African Music Rights Organization and the payout of 22 million rand to artists that have just had their information being changed and not updated on their side. And if you find yourself in that place where you're saying you are registered but you haven't received any funds, perhaps go and visit SAMRO's website and have a look if your details need to be updated. Still so much more coming up right here on The Morning Show. Stay with us.